Hey, let's look at some Spurs news and notes you may have missed, and then address the recent rumor that the Spurs are not looking at Trae Young, but are looking at Dejounte Murray.
You are Locked On Spurs, your daily San Antonio Spurs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Spurs. We're here on the Locked On NBA Network. I'm your host, Jeff Garcia, Spurs writer for Kansas 5 San Antonio. Glad to have y'all back. Hope everybody's having a great TGIF. Happy Friday. And getting ready for that weekend, especially here in San Antonio. Happy Fiesta Friday. We're going to have some fun in the city, aren't we? Hey, as always, we thank you for making Locked On Spurs your first listen each and every day. Free and available wherever you get podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, iTunes, Kansas 5 Plus app. The list goes on and on. So what are we talking about today? We're going to be looking at some quick Spurs news. I mean, really quick. And then we're going to bring in our guest, my colleague at Kansas 5, Casey Viera. We're going to be addressing the recent rumor report that the Spurs are not looking to target Trae Young, but actually prefer Dejounte Murray. Basically, should the Spurs still chase Trae Young, or is Murray in play? All that good stuff. We'll be discussing that and so much more right here on Locked On Spurs. But first, let's get into some Spurs news and notes. And the first one is, this is interesting. So, Wemby cards are a hot item, right? You look online, go to any auction. If it's a Wemby card, it's one of one or a rare one, thousands of dollars, right? Well, recently at the Port of Rochester, up in the northeast of the United States, counterfeit Spurs Wemby cards were seized by U.S. Customs and Border Patrol agents. That's right, they were fake Wemby cards. They were seized, so keep that in mind. When you're buying Wemby cards, and everybody wants to get on the the hot ticket right now, that is Wemby, and add that to the collection. Just be careful who you buy from. So yeah, if you want to read more about that, go to kens5.com/Spurs. Pretty interesting, huh? Just the lengths people will go to try to swindle you, and get that easy cash. Don't be a fool. Do your due diligence. Look at who you're buying from. Look at all that stuff. If it looks fake, trust your gut. Don't go with it. In other Spurs news, Vegas odds makers put out their odds for which team will have the best odds at landing Chris Paul, and the San Antonio Spurs are number one. Yeah, if he does not stay with the Spurs, odds makers, in this case BetOnline, feels that Paul will land with the Spurs. So not a lot of Spurs fans like that. Yeah, a lot of negative reaction. You can find that article at kens5.com/Spurs. In other Spurs news, the Spurs' second home, the Moody Center out in Austin, Texas. Yeah, congrats to that. The Moody Center has been named the number one venue in the world. Not Austin, not Texas, not the United States, the entire world. So where the Spurs go play, looks like it's one of the best venues in the world. So congratulations to the Moody Center. I've been there last season when the Spurs played the pair of Austin games. Very, very nice state-of-the-art arena. Highly recommend if you're in San Antonio, if you could make the trip to Austin, wherever you're at, go do that next year when the Spurs play their pair of games up in Austin, excuse me. In other Spurs news, the Spurs have announced that their new gear / more gear from their La Couture line is available, and as usual, it is a smash. For those who don't know, the Spurs usually put out some new products, new items, clothing, gloves, bags, whatever, but they have like kind of the Mexican spin with it, and they they splash a lot of Spurs designs in it. It's been a hit with fans. It's available right now. Go to spurs.com, check it out. There you'll find the shop. Go get some. Some of those clothes are very, very nice. It's kind of an earthy tones vibe to it. Go check it out. It is available right now. That is it, your quick Spurs news and notes. When we get back, we're going to bring in our guest, Casey Viera, my colleague at Kens 5. We're going to be addressing that report regarding Trae Young and Dejounte Murray. Should the Spurs chase those two guys, or one of the two? Which is the better guy to chase if the Spurs are going to look for bringing in a point guard? That's coming up next in Locked On Spurs. But quick update, though. It is an audio interview, so Casey could only do audio. So, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about that rumor, Spurs and Trae Young and Dejounte Murray. Hey, I want to talk about Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be like just right around the next corner? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. Hey, talk about the 2024 Nissan Pathfinder. Has room up to 8 and expansive cargo capacity and advanced available 4x4 capability with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds of towing. When an adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. How about the 2024 Nissan Rogue? Yeah, it's perfect for city drives, great escapes. Class exclusive Google built-in is your always updating your assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days where you have to be connecting your phone. You got Google Assistant now, Google Maps, Google Play Store. They're there, built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. And the 2024 Rogue is the perfect midsize crossover for your next adventure. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada. Go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. This show episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Look, if you're looking to seek out online therapy, BetterHelp is your one spot you want to go to. You get yourself an unbiased ear in your life. You'll be able to talk to that individual regarding ups and downs of your life. Look, maybe you're going down through a rough period. BetterHelp is right there for you. Maybe you're doing something right. You want to keep on doing it. BetterHelp is there for you. It's completely online, and you can switch therapists whenever you want. Look, it is your one spot to go to if you need to get things off your chest. Look, I get it. Spurs season is over, but there's bigger things than the Spurs season being over and not in the playoffs, right? Maybe something's at work. Maybe something in your personal relationship. What if you're doing something great and you don't want to stop doing that great thing? BetterHelp is there for you. So yeah, if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible to your schedule. And you can visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA right now. Again, that's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Get yourself 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
Hey, this is Hot Rod.
And I'm RC from the Cybertron Spurs.
And you're listening to Locked On Spurs with Jeff Garcia.
And we're now joined by Casey Viera, my colleague at Ken's 5 San Antonio. He keeps it locked down. See what I did there, Casey? On the sports desk every weekend for Ken's 5 TV. Casey, how you doing?
I am locked in.
Is that going to be the running theme now? If we try to kind of crowbar the word locked somehow?
I hope not.
Hopefully the Spurs are not locked into these rumors. How like that?
Go.
You're up.
You said hopefully they're not. I was going to say we better.
Like, in other words, like these rumors are not locked in, like for the Spurs, so they can explore those opportunities.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, we'll stop that, everybody. We'll stop. Make sure to follow Casey on X at Casey_Viera. And he is here to discuss the latest Spurs rumors involving Trae Young and, yes, Dejounte Murray. He is back. Well, his name is popping up once again. And, Casey, in case y'all missed it, everybody, NBC Sports reported that the Spurs do not see a fit with Trae Young and Victor Wembanyama, that they rather pass on and maybe target Dejounte Murray. Now, we'll talk about Dejounte in just a few minutes, but let's start off with the heavy hitter here, and that is Trae Young. First of all, when you saw the report, Casey, did you buy or did you sell it?
I buy. I don't know. I'm of the belief that they're gonna turn every stone, but I think all roads end to them probably not doing anything at all right now.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on how you wanna, I guess I'm selling on the idea of the Trae Young actually coming here.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess technically sell, but it's got to be worth exploring though in the offseason.
It has to be, yeah.
It's got to be. It's got to be. For where
he checks
they're
all
at,
the boxes, right?
What was that?
He checks all the boxes as far as what they need in a point guard right now. I mean, most of them, not all of them, but a good chunk of them.
No, certainly from the offensive standpoint, we know that for sure. It's just been tremendously void. But I think the thing with Trae Young that we're just going to be waiting on is, one, what it's going to take to get him, because that's probably going to cost some nice compensation.
Oh, yeah.
And on the other side, and we'll get to, is the Dejounte part of this, is that would they rather have Dejounte at a lesser price, or I guess door number 3 here, what we're looking at too, is that generally speaking, they seemed, well, generally speaking, in general, they're not one to make the splashy move anyways, but the idea of them being content and happy with what they have certainly seems relevant now. At least I thought so, based off the exit pressers that they had. Initially, I was of the belief that, yeah, they're going to explore it, and I think they will. But after those exit pressers, I was just thinking to myself and saying, yeah, they seem pretty all on the same page. They're all kind of saying the same exact things about next year. I'm not guaranteeing anything one way or another. But there was a real sense of kind of, and you were there, you saw it, the sense of unification, if you will, that you would not get from a team that seemed like, yeah, this is the last hurrah. We'll see how it goes. Everyone's talking next year. There was none of it. Yeah, hypothetical. We'll see how it goes, whether here, I'm looking forward to the summer, whether it's here or wherever it may be. Yeah. I don't know. That's a roundabout way of saying I'm not entirely sure yet.
Yeah, and talking about Trae Young, is we were talking about that. Offensively, he checks the boxes for what the Spurs exactly need to pair with Wemby. Wemby needs a deep perimeter threat, at least a consistent one. How's that, Casey?
Right.
And he's one of the better perimeter shooters in the NBA. 43% shooting, 37% from the three line. Last season with Atlanta, close to 26 points per game, 25.7. Solid facilitator. I think that gets underrated as a part of his game. This baffled me. I had no idea. He averaged about 11 assists per game last year.
Right.
He can definitely share the ball.
Oh, yeah.
He's a gunner, but he's also a pretty good facilitator. Again, on paper, fits with Wemby and what the Spurs need. But again, NBC Sports is saying don't bet on that happening. A young Wemby Spurs union there, that they don't see the Spurs and Wemby and Young fitting together. You know what, Casey? When I first saw it, my first thought was, "Oh, this is gamesmanship. What if this is Spurs just trying to muddy the waters?"
Probably. Because I don't think they'll be the only ones this summer that'll inquire about both Trae and Dejounte's services. I think in all likelihood they're going to split that. Meaning Atlanta, they're going to split that pairing up.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point in the summer, whether it be with the Spurs or whoever it may be, not even necessarily in the intent of blowing it up and starting from scratch, but just trying something else, because the pairing as a whole with he and Dejounte hasn't. Obviously, they're not in the playoffs, but Trae's been hurt too. But even when Trae was healthy, it hasn't been immaculate. I will say this, though. I think a lot of people will agree. I think they overperformed with Dejounte being the guy while Trae was out, and the fact that they were relevant in the play-in game. I know behind them the competition wasn't elite. I think Brooklyn finished like 5 games behind them. But I do think the market is getting a little bit warmer on Dejounte, because he did play well. He played well, and really for the season as a whole, he had a pretty good season. But he did play well, and when he was taking over that lead role for the short while, maybe a little more than short, for the several week time that he had to.
I look at this and the Spurs fans, they're very split on Trae Young. And then they go on social media, they're some camp, pro Trae Young, bring him, and then there's team no, stay away from him. And if there's now if NBA players have their say, anonymously we saw on The Athletic, they also rate Trae Young as one of the most overrated players in the NBA. That's got to say something there too, Casey. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a lot of hangover from the playoff run he had in 21, getting the Hawks to the conference finals.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people who tend to put Trae Young in the top 25 category in the league. Trae Young's not a top 25 player. He's not. Yeah. But is Trae Young going to be a very solid option at the point guard spot for a team that has a generational talent? Absolutely. He's a good guy to have around. He'd fit very well next to Victor with what what to complement all the things Victor's looking to
Yeah.
do, but overrated in the sense that of the publicity and kind of living off of that one playoff run, probably, because I think a lot of people probably have placed him when that was going on in that top 20 to 25 player in the league category, which he's not. But if he comes to San Antonio, he's going to be a very solid number 2 to Victor, and he's going to be a very solid option to put the ball in his hands when you need a play made. Defensively is, I think another thing too is I think a lot of people get on about the defensive part of it, aspect of his game, which admittedly is a liability. It's a liability for as fantastic as he is on the offensive end. The defense is the question mark, and probably what that's going to come down to this summer is, if that does happen or not, is whether they feel like they have enough, in addition to what they give away to get Trae Young, theoretically, is they have enough to mask his deficiencies. And I mean, having Victor is certainly a big way to start to mask some, but not entirely all of that. But I think there is some validity to the idea of him being overrated, but just because I think he's being overrated is not someone I wouldn't want on my team. But obviously depends on the price.
Oh, for sure. Now, you nailed it on the head. For those that say, Trae Young's defense is just horrible, you're right. But when you got a human eraser behind you, you'll be okay. You can gamble a little bit more. And that even goes for some of the better perimeter defenders the Spurs have. They can gamble. They can play a little more risky defensively, knowing that you have Victor behind you. The other thing too, when I look at this thing, is Trae Young. That is, he has a little bit of a history of being kind of. I mean, I don't know you for what you want to take this words with a grain of salt or not, Casey, but kind of being like a locker room issue. Wasn't there an issue recently where he didn't want a certain coach there? There were players kind of low key and then not be saying, not the greatest teammate to play with,
Yeah.
But there's that side of it. But again, if they want W's, they being the Spurs, and they want to shore up the perimeter shooting, and they want to bring in an all-star guard, this might be the best you're going to get. You're not going to, you look at all the landscape right now of the league and see some of the top point guards. Those teams are not going to let them go at all.
No.
You're not going to let go of De'Aaron Fox. You're not going to let go of guys like that, of that ilk. So if Trae Young is gettable, it is an upgrade. No knock on Trae Jones, but it is an upgrade offensively.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not with Trae Jones, you're not exactly giving up Gary Payton on the defensive end neither.
Yeah.
I don't see a world where acquiring Trae Young makes the Spurs worse in any respect.
There's nowhere else to go up but up after last season.
Yeah, exactly. Nowhere. Yeah, right. For me, I think the question mark is what the price tag is going to be to get him, and I think that's what it pretty much. How much the Spurs are willing to part with for that, because again, he won't be the only one Spurs won't be the only team that are going to be making calls about him. And if we're being entirely honest, the Spurs have enough, but they don't necessarily have enough afterwards once they get Trae Young here. What's if you're emptying what you got and you're given what you do have, which they do, which of course is the picks, and I think Devin Vassell would be immediately put on the market or be asked for in return. You're kind of left in a spot of, well, what else do we have? And I think that's the biggest counter argument is that they get Trae Young, and you have not necessarily the hard part figured out, but you have two foundational pieces in place, but at the expense of potentially losing everything else that you got. Yeah. Mind you, everything else that you got is largely replaceable, but you're kind of starting again from scratch. it's a very much a moving carousel with that, and obviously things that are going to have to be, I guess, magnified a little bit more.
Right. Yeah. Look, and obviously that is one of the bigger if there's going to be a sticking point, is the asking price for that. And the Spurs, as you mentioned, can't afford it. It's just, I don't see them paying some, even if it's a overpriced ticket, but not too bad. I don't see them mortgaging a lot on Trae Young. I don't see them going that far. Like, okay, here's 3 first-round picks, and you need Keldon, something ridiculous like that. I don't see that happening. But what I do see happening is the team consulting with Victor, because as we saw during the All-Star break, they were very chummy, weren't they, Casey? I mean, they were hanging out. I mean, that was a bromance budding. And if Victor believes that Trae Young will help him and the team get better, I'm sure they're going to explore that opportunity. How much of the Wemby impact is going to be in play when it comes to Trae Young, or just any major acquisition?
Was that a rhetorical question, or?
Yeah, exactly. It should be, because yes, he's going to get consulted with.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all know. You kind of answered your own question right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
At the end of the day, let's just pretend here. Next thing you know, you wake up in the morning, you open up your inbox, you see an alert from the Spurs. They say, "Hey, we made a deal with Atlanta." Flipping tables, or you're all in, or you're good move, Spurs, yay, thumbs up.
I think it depends on the compensation. I really do. I think everyone's fair game. We know that. I'm not saying anything that we don't already know. But another thing for me with emptying things to get Trae is what you have left over to do something else. And the big argument against Trae Young to do that, in my mind, is that if you give up 5-6 picks for Trae Young, it's still, the team is of course a lot better. You have your 2 focal points, but to make that next move, you have nothing left. You have nothing left of your own. Yeah. Which you fill it out when you have a place to start. Yeah. But unless you're getting a top 10 to 15 player in the league, you feel a lot better about not having additional assets than you do with Trae, who's closer to a top 30 player in the league. You feel a lot better about that situation. And for me, that's where I get a little bit shy on that, is paying a king's ransom, because you're not getting, think about the Donovan Mitchell is the immediate one that pops to mind. You're not getting Donovan Mitchell back. You're not. You're not getting Damian Lillard back. I know Dame. Maybe that's a bad example because Dame's a little. That's a bad example, but the overriding point stands.
Yeah. Here's the other thing I want to toss out there is Spurs make a deal for Trae Young. It's a reasonable ask. So yay, Trae Young's a Spur. Wemby's happy. Spurs bringing in that all-star point guard they need. We know he can do offensively. But do you think there might be an issue of just too many mouths to feed on the court? Victor's going to be number one. Everybody's going to know that. But then there's a thing with Trae Young and then Devin Vassell. Devin Vassell needs his touches. Trae Young needs his touches. Wemby needs his touches. You think could that be an issue down the road if this scenario plays out where the Spurs make a deal for Young?
No, because I think there's only 3 guys that can put the ball in the basket with regularity there.
Yeah.
That require touches. You're not going to let Jeremy Sohan shoot 20 times a game, assuming he's here.
Yeah.
Keldon likes to get trigger happy, but 20 touches a game is not going to be there for him at that point. I wouldn't be concerned about that. No.
Yeah. And you mentioned a name right there, Keldon. He'll probably be the player they throw in a deal like that, if they want a player.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, he'll be it. All right. Well, there you have it. There are thoughts on the whole speculation with Trae Young, Spurs, report the Spurs are not interested in bringing that just baffled me. I was like, are you kidding me? You explore that. Anyways, Spurs fans, when we get back, we're going to continue our chat because another name, a familiar name, was mentioned in the report. Dejounte Murray. Again, his name pops up once again, linked to the Spurs. We're going to talk about that. That's next right here on Locked On Spurs. Hey, I want to talk to you about LinkedIn Talent Solutions. If you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn is not just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to a perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're looking at LinkedIn, well, you're looking at the right place. And if you're not looking at LinkedIn, then you're looking at the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like the professionals on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding new ways to make the process easier. They have a new feature that even helps you write job descriptions and making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. You should too. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Hey, I want to talk about Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee, San Antonio. You want to go there right now. Hurry up. Go to Mudslingers Drive-Thru Coffee, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive. That's in the 281 to 1604 area. You need a latte, they got it. You need a cold brew, they got it. You need dairy alternatives, they got that too. You need just a regular coffee just to get you into the world of coffee, try their Mudslinger drink. It is very, very good. That's their signature coffee, by the way. And they got it all. They got mini donuts, they got a friendly staff, they got a great menu. They have, they're a proud sponsor of Locked On Spurs and a proud community member of San Antonio, serving San Antonio the best drinks in the city. They also have the Lightning Bolt series. Now, they started using Lotus Energy instead of Red Bull. Lotus has similar caffeine to Red Bull, but with 7 power plant extracts. It gives them flexibility to create new drinks. They'll still have Red Bull available, but they're going to go with the default will be Lotus. So keep that in mind. The Lightning Bolt line even includes the Alien. That's in honor of Victor Wembanyama. Go try it. It is delicious. It's now made with Lotus Energy, combining natural caffeine and a powerful blend of 7 plant extracts. The new and improved Lightning Bolts will keep you powered up all day. And that's exactly what Mudslingers do. They're always thinking of new ways to give better drinks to San Antonio. And they just did it right there with the Lightning Bolts. Again, 2404 Thousand Oaks Drive. Open every single day from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Go there right now, San Antonio. Follow them on social media at Mudslinger SATX. That's one word, at Mudslinger SATX. Go there right now because life is too short for a bland coffee. And we're back on Locked On Spurs with Casey Viera, my colleague at Ken's 5. Follow him on X at Casey_Viera. Casey, I would never trade you if I was a team. I would never trade you. Yeah, unless you pull a Kawhi. That's the only route I'll go.
I would trade you in a heartbeat.
I know you would. I knew you would. Good Lord.
Yep.
Man, feeling the love here on Locked On Spurs right now.
Listen, man. Got to get a good return. I got a good return. I
always wonder if players that get traded always look at the return. Do they say, okay, I get it. Like, I understand why they traded me.
Like, I'm sure at some point they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think.
I'm sure at some point they do. Yeah.
I think George Hill mentioned it one time. He said that he was stunned that the Spurs traded him for Kawhi on draft day. And then down the road, he's like, okay, but now I get it.
Now you get it.
It was Kawhi, yeah. But anyway, we're talking about the recent. Yeah.
The difference of being 23 and 33.
Exactly. We are talking about the recent report via NBC Sports that the Spurs do not have any interest in bringing Trae Young to San Antonio to pair with Wemby. But another part of that report was that if there is a Hawks player that the Spurs could target, that would be former point guard Dejounte Murray. This is now the second time Murray's name has been linked back to San Antonio, sort of reunion. Popped up during the NBA trade deadline this past season, pops up now in the offseason for the Spurs. Again, Casey, Dejounte's name comes up. if there is a point guard that checks perhaps more boxes than Trae Young, would be Dejounte because of his defense on the perimeter, plus his offense, and plus everything else. Familiarity with the team, familiarity with Pop. Veteran. Technically, he's a veteran now. He is an all-star. He's a one-time all-star. It seems to me if they're going to pick between Murray and Young, I could see them going with Murray. Also, he's cheaper too.
I think that's another reason why.
Yeah.
I think that's another reason why, and it goes back to not wanting to use all of your assets on something. What are you better served as when you lay it out with Trae and Wemby and minimal tradable assets, or Dejounte Wemby and more tradable assets to get something to put around that? Initially, I was very much on board with the go all in on Trae Young, but the more you think about it, what it'll likely cost for what you're getting back and what you're left with to make that next move. At the end of the day, I think Dejounte is more of the move at a lesser price.
Yeah, exactly.
I think so. I mean, in addition to the fact that he knows San Antonio, well, we know that he knows he fixed a lot of things at a relatively reasonable rate that are needed here. Trae Young is the far superior offensive player, but Dejounte has shown in recent years he's developed at the next level. He's not a slouch. He can put the ball in the basket. We know he can get the ball. We know he can get the ball to Victor.
Yeah.
So that's not a concern whatsoever. So I think for what the asking price would be, I think that's probably the route to explore, only because you're getting a pretty good basketball player in addition to that, and you're still left with a little something left over to make your next move. I think that's the route to go.
Yeah, I think that's probably the more explored route. Not just, I mean, I hope they're not shutting off an exploration of Trae Young, but if they're gonna pack up their exploring gear, I would throw in an extra maps, extra few bucks in their backpack for Dejounte. Now, his 4-year, $114 million extension begins next season. It's Dejounte's, and
which is not a terrible number.
No, it's not. It's not if you break it down. And last season, he put up some really good numbers: 22.5 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 6.4 assists, 46% shooting from the field, and about 1.4 steals per game with Atlanta. For me, it's the defense. The Spurs got cooked last year on the perimeter. I mean, bad. So many players had their career nights versus the Spurs. 3-point shots were falling left and right. The perimeter players for the opposing teams were just going off. Dejounte solves that and then some. Dare I say, and you mentioned it too. He is probably the preferred point guard to bring and pair with Wemby. Spurs fans are going to have to get over his comments after he left San Antonio, was traded from San Antonio. That's in the past. I think Spurs fans will be forgiving once the wins start piling up, if they do next season, and if they make a deal for Murray, and if Wemby's happy, Casey.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but
go ahead.
For the most part, it seems like that's all been smoothed over.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the fans took that hard enough, as was indicated by when he came back and he got a standing ovation. I don't think the fans are bothered enough. I'm sure there's a contingent that would say, no, never again. But I don't think fans were. I don't think this is a Kawhi situation or anything like that. He seems to still be liked by the players in the locker room. So I wouldn't be concerned.
Yeah. I was at the game where he returned to San Antonio this past season. And was there a little bit of booing? A slight. There was, but majority was applause from the Spurs fan base. He still talks about San Antonio. Even though his time, he's currently with Atlanta, Casey, during his Atlanta time right now, he's with Team New Balance, the sneakers. He actually released a Spurs-themed sneaker, even though he's in Atlanta. So he still has that connection. to San Antonio. He's been very grateful to San Antonio, saying they gave him a chance. A lot of teams passed on him on draft day because of his background, and so there's that. And look, he's a dog, man. He's a dog. He wants to win it, and I think the Spurs can use a lot more of that. Not to say the current roster is full of dogs, not at all. I'm not saying that, but you add more of that dogged mentality on the roster. I think that'll go over well with the Spurs. And look, he learned a lot with his time in San Antonio, Casey. He learned a lot from DeMar DeRozan, and you could see kind of shades of DeMar DeRozan's game in Dejounte, that he's gotten a lot better in the mid-range shot. He will open up space for Wemby to operate if the Spurs were to make a deal for him, Casey.
Mm-hmm. And I think getting him back I think you're getting a more grown, at least in theory, a more grown version of Dejounte. I know we talked about it, and some people felt that way. The maturity thing is a few years ago wasn't there, but I think the Atlanta experience, at least if it were me, and I was going in that with the mindset that Dejounte had at the time, I feel like I would be humbled a bit by it, perhaps in a don't burn bridges, grass is not always greener type of sense.
Right.
Because very easily, I mean, he's fortunate on the Spurs side that it wasn't enough to burn that bridge, and not much of a fence needed to be mended. But largely, for the most part, he got put in a spot with a team that a lot of people expected to be in reasonable contention in the Eastern Conference, and they have been largely irrelevant. Even when healthy, they've been largely irrelevant. And when you're the number 2 option on that team, one of the highest paid players on that team, that responsibility falls on you.
Yeah,
so
and when it comes,
surprised if this is viewed as an eye-opening experience for him, and you're going to get a grown Dejounte Murray come back to San Antonio, should it happen.
And you look at what sticker prices in comparison to each other, Murray versus Trae Young. I don't think that Atlanta will ask for something stupidly crazy for Dejounte. I don't think that'll happen. You probably
I don't think it'll have a Trae Young's price tag. No.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Spurs will be able to work better with Atlanta to some sort of operate a deal that's a little bit reasonable for both sides to accept. But I would not be surprised if again you wake up in the morning and you see a note from the Spurs in your inbox saying, "Okay, we made a deal for Dejounte." I would not be surprised. My first thought, I think, if that were to happen, I'd be, okay, that makes sense. I wouldn't be shocked. I'd just be, oh wow, that's cool. That makes sense. I think that'll be my reaction. But I know some Spurs fans,
I'm
still
with
don't
you
like
on
him.
that.
Yes. Some Spurs fans still are sour on him, but you're gonna have to get over with Spurs fans. I think Dejounte would be exactly what the Spurs need, and he's not that old. He's still very young. They just checks more boxes, in my opinion, than Trae Young. Hey, we're done talking. We want to hear from you. What do you think about the latest rumors regarding the Spurs, Hawks, Murray, Trae Young? You can let Casey know on X at Casey_Viera. And you can let me know on the Locked On Spurs YouTube page. Leave comments. We appreciate that. Casey, what's going on in your side of things there over at Ken's?
Oh, what's going on our side of things? The usual nonsense, chicanery on a Saturday night, talking about your daily happenings in the sports world. We'll
Get together,
have plenty more on.
Do that video segment again. We got to do that video segment soon. That was fun.
Oh yeah. After Dejounte gets traded to the Spurs, you can come back.
Yeah. Everybody tells me like
trade you somewhere else, and it could be your farewell.
Yeah. Everybody tells me it's the offseason. Yeah, there was like, it's the offseason, Jeff. Don't you take a break? I'm like, not really. Look, Ken's is still putting out some good stuff. I mean, I recently, I don't know if you caught this on KensFi.com/Spurs, that Blake Griffin came out and said that he wanted to be a Spur in his career. That's fun. So we had a little debate about this on yesterday's Locked On Spurs. And so we kind of narrowed it down to this. The 2018-19 squad is where he would best fit. That squad had LaMarcus Aldridge, DeMar DeRozan, Rudy Gay, Bellinelli, I think a young Derek White. You throw in Blake Griffin, And Blake Griffin was still somewhat still the Blake Griffin that we remember. And this time he's developed a mid-range shot. I think his mid-range shot has respite. Does
He's
the
doing that pretty
squad
well at the end? Yeah.
Yeah. Does a 2018-19 squad with Blake Griffin give the peak Golden State Warriors team run?
No.
No?
No.
Dang,
No.
I said yeah. I think they push him. They push Golden State.
Okay, maybe they push them. They don't knock them over though.
Mm.
That team, the Durant era, as short as it was, that team probably was the greatest team we're going to see of our generation. Talent-wise, top to bottom, certainly in that starting five, that rivals 90s Bulls. We're going to look back at that and just kind of acknowledge how ridiculously unfair that was.
Yeah. I remember the days where Golden State would just step on the court and teams are just intimidated, like from the jump. Just like, oh no, we're gonna lose. Somebody, I asked this on social media. Does a team, like same scenario, does a team with Blake Griffin 2018-19 Spurs push, or give Golden State a scare? Keen Spurs fan said, agreed with you, probably not. Why? Because that's a very big team, and the NBA was already transitioning to small ball 3-point shooting.
Yeah. No, that's another good point. I mean, that starting lineup had 4 Hall of Famers with Splash Brothers, KD, Draymond, and then you had Prime Iguodala off the bench because everybody gets into the Hall of Fame. He might get in too. And had all the pieces around that, the Sean Livingstons of the world. That team was that team wasn't. The Spurs weren't going to take that team down.
Yeah,
they weren't going to take that team down with Blake Griffin. Yeah, without Blake Griffin, they weren't going to take them down. No.
Yeah. Shout out Josh on X at JoshJames11B for that observation. Appreciate that. But it just, hey, look, Casey, it's the offseason. I had to think of something for Locked On Spurs yesterday.
Listen, we talk about it all the time. The COVID run hardened you. You can do anything now.
Exactly. He is Casey Viera. Follow him on X at Casey_Viera. Make sure you do that right now. And that's another week here at Locked On Spurs. We'll be back on Monday. I believe Joe Garcia, Two Shots Podcast, will be filling in with me on Monday, talking all things Spurs. We might go into the Chris Paul section now. So that'll be a fun discussion with Joe Garcia this coming Monday. As always, subscribe to Locked On Sports Today, 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Go subscribe to it right now. So for Casey Viera, I am Jeff Garcia. We're going to put a lock on this episode of Locked On Spurs.